My name is Councillor Stuart Keithley. I shall be your chair for this evening. So before I move on to anything else, we've got a little bit of housekeeping. There's no fire alarms planned for this evening, so if the fire alarm does go off, we'll need to get out, and it's in the bottom corner of that room, back to reception across the road to the Windmill pub. We muster in the car park rather than in the bar. So if you would please ensure that you switched off any phones or anything like that that might interrupt the meeting, or put them on silent, that would be very helpful. Now this is a live broadcast meeting. It's broadcast live. Members of the public not here can be watching it, just to let you know that. And I'd just like to introduce at that point the top table. We have Ciara Keller from Democratic Services, Sue Mullins, our legal advisor, Alice Cosnett, our planning manager, and case officers Louise Coleman and Eleanor Bass. Alice, I think you've got a statement to make, please.
I do, thank you, Chair. My role is to provide impartial advice and to assist members in their decision taking.
Right, thank you very much, Alice. Now, just a note about these microphones, because the last meeting people were speaking without having them on. So please can you make sure that you are, you've got your light on when you're speaking, councillors. And if your members are public registered to speak tonight, they'd be the only ones speaking, I'll invite you up and you can use the microphone. I'll give you instructions when we get to that point. Okay, thank you very much for that. Right. Apologies for absence first, moving on to the agenda. Ciara?
We have apologies from Councillor Parry with Councillor Organ substitute.
Thank you for that. Item 2, disclosures of interest. Councillors, any disclosures of interest? Okay, I'll start with you, Councillor Scorer.
Thank you, Chair. Item 5 on the agenda, 24/00009/full. I'm known to the applicant, but I come with a clear and open mind.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Scorer. Councillor Harvey.
Equally, in relation to item 5, Applecross Fields, although I'm familiar with the road, I did make a visit this afternoon and leant on the gate and viewed the site. I didn't talk to anybody, so I come with an open mind on that particular application. Okay,
thank you very much. Anybody else, anything to say? No? Thanks very much for that. So that's disclosure of interest. Minutes of the previous meeting. Now these are the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of January 2025. Hopefully you've all had a chance to look at those. Can I take them as true and read, please? Agreed. Thank you very much for that. And then moving on to tonight's applications. Well, I'm actually going to reverse the order. There's only 2. But because I think there are more speakers on the application for Applecross Fields, I've decided that we should take that first, and that we shall take the Woolly Park Farm second. So I'm going to start with application 24/00009, Applecross Fields, and the presenting officer is Louise Coleman. So Louise, if you're ready, would you like us to take us through the case, please?
Thank you, Chair. The application site, identified by the black dot on the map, is located in the open countryside, approximately 376 metres southwest of Ratley Village and approximately 300 metres northwest of the Cotswolds National Landscape Area boundary. The application site is identified by the red line plan on the map, includes the visibility displays, and consists of a rectangular piece of land with a small wooded area in the northwestern corner. A public footpath identified by the hatch green line runs through the wooded area, and a dense hedgerow encloses the southern and northeastern boundaries. The site falls within the confines of a registered battlefield known as the Edgehill Historic Battlefield Area, and a local wildlife site known as Edgehill Meadows and Westcup Farm Meadow. Retrospective planning permission is sought to change the use of the land to a children's forest school, including the creation of an associated gravel access track, parking area and ancillary structures, including a freestanding compost toilet. So as I just stated, the area for car parking is identified in this zone here. The red area here, underneath you can see the woodland area that's present. That's designated as the main forest school location, and the composite toilet is in this area here with the gravel track identified in the pink. Access to the site is via an existing access off Tyso Road, which leads to the designated car parking area. This provides the ability for the parking of up to 20 vehicles. The car parking area is proposed to remain as grass as it currently is shown in that photograph. And the forest school area, apologies, I'll just go back to this one, identified as Wood and Wellies, is located where the, as I say, the main forest school is retrospectively being sought. So turning to some more photographs of the site, this is a photo of the standalone composite toilet. This is a view, so we got the maps here to help orientate you. So this is looking in a westerly direction. So this is the wooded area here where the forest school is contained within. This is a view from the public right-of-way as you're just getting into the access in the site. This is a view looking down towards the boundary of the site here where the forest school is contained within. You can just about see here's some picnic benches. And then this is looking within the woodland area. So you can see the sort of forest school paraphernalia. This is the public right-of-way, so this skirts around the area where the forest school is currently contained. And then that's the exit out with the public right-of-way. Now this is a view taken, as you can see by the blue arrow, looking back towards the forest school. This is showing the car parking area. So this is the looking here. And as part of the proposals, additional landscape buffer is proposed along this area here, which would effectively seek to assist in obscuring views effectively along this area from the public footpath. These are the visibility splays either side of the existing access. Oh, apologies. I seem to have lost one. Oh, yeah. So yeah, that's the visibility displays. And in terms of updates, there is one update to report in the update sheet, and the recommendation is one of grant. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much, Louise. Okay, so we have some people registered to speak on this. To start with, we have Councillor Amanda Venables of Tyso Parish Council. Yes, good evening, Councillor. And Councillor Colin Matthews of Radway Parish Council, neighbouring parish councils. If you'd like to come up to the table, I understand that one of you is going to use up the 3 minutes, and the other one's, one of you is going to answer any particular, or be available to answer specific questions. Great, okay. Now, I've just realised that the thing that I rely upon most at this point in proceedings is a little stopwatch thing, and I don't have it, so bear with me. Or Kira, can I say, could you just keep an eye on the time for me? Or Sue, and just prompt me. What we normally do is give you a sort of 30 seconds warning towards the end. Yeah. So if you like to press the right-hand side, you'll get a little red light. Oh, there you go. And when you're ready.
Okay. And I've got a presentation that's just going to run on a loop.
Right. Have you got that presentation?
Yeah.
You've got that? Yes? Okay, super.
Yeah.
When you're ready.
Okay. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. Tysoe Parish Council is objecting because this is in a highly unsustainable location, inconsistent with CS22. It's not sensitive to the character of the local area, and in fact it harms it, so it's not compliant with CS22 or CS24. It will decrease tranquillity in this previously very quiet location. This goes against Tysoe NDP, which says protection of the rural setting, and particularly the tranquillity aspect, is at the heart of the Tysoe vision. We believe the public benefits don't outweigh these harms because Tysoe and Radway already have facilities which provide most of these benefits, including forest school sessions at Tysoe Preschool and in neighbouring villages too. The isolated location means it will be unlikely to support other services, contra CS24. Access by foot is difficult and unsafe for young families. The footpaths are across muddy fields, kissing gates mean buggies must be lifted. The crossing by the site is between two sharp bends which limit visibility. The roads from Radway and Tysoe are winding, often single track with no footpaths. Using public transport would be highly impractical as it's very limited around in this area. The letters of support show that customers travel a long way, several from Banbury and Stratford, others from other villages like South and Hook Norton. But many come from very far away, Daventry, Morton-in-the-Marsh, Colchester and Dean. These long journeys would vastly outweigh any benefit of sustainability from gained from the part-time job created. There were only 2 households from Radway and 3 from Tysoe who wrote to support the site. The other letters were all from much further away. The Battlefield Trust has stated that the car park and the toilet will harm views across the registered battlefield. The site sits on the border between 2 special landscape areas and in views to and from the national landscape. These high-quality landscapes will similarly be harmed. We don't believe a landscape buffer will fully screen 20 cars in all directions in winter, in an area where walkers are focused on views. The Battlefield Trail runs right through the site, and the play items left out and the car park do affect the visibility, the visual amenity here. CS24 says tourist venues should be appropriate for the size of the settlement and/or the specific nature of the location.
That's 30 seconds now.
A visitor attraction this size is not appropriate in this isolated location. This area already has some tourists that come, and the cumulative effect of another 20 cars and perhaps 40 people arriving and departing, potentially several times a day, will spoil the tranquility that is a special part of this area. If the site were truly a forest and the children could have an immersive forest experience, these harms could perhaps be justified. But this is just a small group of trees, and this type of play could be far better provided in more suitable locations.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor. Right, at this point, we'll see if members have any questions for either of the councillors from Tysoe or Radway. More questions?
I knew you were looking expectantly at
Oh,
me.
well, no, I'm not. Well, only because you tend to be one of the
wouldn't-
first with a question. That's
I won't
all.
disappoint
Trevor,
you.
thank you.
Very simple question. Do you know how long this is a retrospective application?
Yeah.
Have you got any? Can you tell us any from your local knowledge about how long it's been in existence?
I don't know exactly, but 2 or 3 years. It started during lockdown, I think.
Councillor Padgham.
Thank you. Just wondering, how many sessions of forest school sessions are actually provided by the local school?
I don't know, again, I don't know exactly. My children are much older than that, but they run it from April to October, and they regularly walk up from Tysoe Preschool. There's a little wood behind called Badger's Wood. The children walk up and do their forest school sessions there, but I don't know how many per week or anything.
Follow-up question?
Sorry, so does that mean I'm assuming then you'd have to be attending that school to be able to go to those sessions. Is
Yes,
that
for that
correct?
one. Yeah, there are others in other villages around, such as Kyneton, Brailes, Warnton. But
Any other questions? I have a question myself, actually, if that's okay. In your objections, you say that this particular activity would be a loss of the rural character. Yet what we see is photographs in the wood, obviously. Why do you assert that?
I think the tranquility aspect is the cars arriving and departing, the 20 cars per session. Also, the look of the woods. In the summer, it's very different, but in winter, the photos that, if you went now to the site, it's subjective, but it doesn't perhaps look that. It's not what you expect maybe when you're walking through the Battlefield Trail, which is billed as a beautiful pathway.
All right, thank you for that. Further questions? No? In that case, thank you very much indeed for your contributions. Okay, thank you. So we have the applicant and the agent speaking. So that's Mrs. Plastow, is that right? Mrs. Plastow? And Mr. Barker, the agent. So if you'd like to come forward, thank you very much. You've also got 3 minutes. How do you think you're going to split this or play it?
Correct you, I'm not the agent. Mrs. Plastow is undergoing treatment for chemotherapy.
Right.
I've been asked by Mrs. Plastow to join her, just in case she wasn't feeling well enough.
Okay.
But I am a chartered surveyor planning consultant.
Right. And your name is?
Tim Barker.
Tim. Oh, right, you're on here. Sorry, Tim. It just says agent, that's all. So that's fine. So, Mrs. Plastow then, so when you're ready, 3 minutes, tell us a bit about Forest School. It's the one on the right, and the little red light should come on. There we go. Okay. Sue?
Chair, councillors, I appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening in support of Woods and Wellies Outdoor Playgroup. Set within a small woodland in Applecross Fields, this initiative has provided an invaluable community asset for young children and their families. It is a low-impact, sustainable and environmentally conscious use of the land, supporting both child development and local well-being. Established in response to the pandemic's lasting effect on early childhood socialisation, Woods and Wellies has grown into a trusted space where families can come together and where outdoor play, creativity and a connection with nature is encouraged. It operates 3 mornings a week, with each morning being charged to parents who stay with their children for the duration of the session at just £7, and for which parents also receive a cup of tea, representing a real opportunity for children to get away from screens and regularly and affordably get outside and into our countryside. Woods and Wellies is not just about children, it also supports parents. It is no coincidence that the 50 individual letters submitted in support of this application were submitted by women, indicative, we believe, of the need for an affordable community space, particularly for mothers who suffer the most from social isolation, which inevitably comes with parenting very small children, and for whom Woods and Wellies has fostered an important network. The local authority has demonstrated its support for the proposal, acknowledging within its delegated report the contributions made to the local community, environmental education and well-being. No objections remain outstanding in terms of highways, ecology, rights of way or heritage. Furthermore, the case officer considers the proposal to align with local plan policies AS10, CS22 and CS24, and to this can be added inter alia paragraphs 88 and 89 of the NPPF, which support community facilities in rural areas. Councillors, you are here because you have taken responsibility for how our society develops and how placemaking should be steered. Woods and Wellies is an example of how local communities can be bettered affordably with no impact upon landscape or environment, and where the seeds of environmental responsibility and community togetherness can be germinated through early years outdoor education for young people today to encourage responsible, conscious and contributory adults in our community tomorrow. For these reasons, I respectfully urge the committee to recognise the value of Woods and Wellies and to support this application. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed for that. Councillors, members, do you have any questions for Mrs Plasto? I'll take Councillor Hensher-Seraphin first.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Good evening.
Hello.
What age range are these children?
So they're preschool, 0 to 5.
0 to 5.
0 to 5. On a weekend, they might be up to 8-year-olds. So perhaps if you've got an older brother or sister, come along as well.
Just 3 mornings a week?
Yeah.
For how many hours was that?
It's a 90-minute session.
90 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Peter. Councillor Scorer, please.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, the field, at the moment, it's grass. Have you got ownership of all the field? And how will you be managing the grassland? Because I believe it's quite an old lay there, as in...
Yeah, it can get wet, which is why we run April to October. We have no intention of changing any of the grass area for parking. We manage that really well, and that just factors into our decision about when we operate. So we close through the winter, so we don't damage any of the grassland around that.
Yes, of course.
So you're carrying it on as an old-fashioned hay meadow?
Oh
with the
yeah, so
management?
there's just a pathway from the car park to the woodland area. Everything else is left to grow to meadow hay. That gets cut once a year, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Eden, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. A couple of questions, if I may. The first one is around, obviously, the car parking. For up to 20 cars, do you sort of operate a booking-only system for
Yeah, so people book online. So I have a capped session. I sell a set number of tickets. That's my choice. I dictate those numbers, and that factors in the car parking. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. A second, if I may, Chair.
Yes, of course.
And now I've forgotten it. Let Councillor Fleming go.
Okay, must have been a difficult one. Councillor Fleming.
Good evening. In view of the footpath walking through the exact area where you have 0 to 5-year-olds, a little bit of a concern about safeguarding. You know, so you've got members of the public can just wander through there. How do you mitigate or allow for the potential of safeguarding in that area?
So all the children that attend have their parents with them. There aren't any unsupervised children. On arrival, the parents are reminded each session there is a footpath. Both the gates are proper footpath gates. They close, they click shut. I mean, beyond that, you know, I've kept the play area away from the footpath. It's not a very busy footpath. I'll be honest, I see the same 1 or 2 people pass through. They say hello. They say they're happy to see the children playing outside. Most people are really respectful, and you know, they just stop. You know, sometimes they just stop and say hello. But the children are with their parents, so the parents have ultimate responsibility for their children.
Thank you. Councillor Eden.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for bearing with me. The parish councils have touched upon as part of their objections around tranquility. Obviously, you have sessions with younger children, and younger children make some noise. I think, as we all know. What sort of activities do you do, and how do you kind of mitigate that, or is it not really a huge concern to your mind?
I mean, it's not a concern to me because I think children should be able to play and be free outside. It's a free play environment. They are encouraged to gravitate towards activities which they enjoy, and I would be surprised if you heard lots of children running around screaming, because actually they're usually so engrossed in their activities that they're very focused on what they're doing.
Okay. Councillor Passingham, please.
One of the objections is about possible damage to the archaeological records and artifacts and the leaving of metal objects and things like that. Have you got any response to that?
What do you mean leaving
Well,
of metal
I think it
objects?
says that, I think it's implying that bits of, I don't know, possibly cans might be left there.
Cans?
Or something like that,
Okay.
which would then, if anybody was doing metal detecting, it might confuse the survey.
I mean, I had a heritage impact assessment done. They were happy with what we're doing. We don't have any metal on site with small children.
And you've
I could, if a walker passes through and drops some rubbish, maybe, but we certainly aren't leaving any rubbish on the floor because I really look after it.
Yeah, I'm good.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
I have two questions. During your contribution, you made reference to local authorities. Have you had to go through any hoops as far as the local authority is concerned, or in any way are you regulated by the local authority? Can you just expand upon your local authority connection, please?
Regulated in terms of running activities for children, is that what you mean?
I'm not an expert on running groups for small children, but I just wondered whether, total ignorance on my part, whether there are hoops you have to go through, regulations or requirements you
So
have
I'm
to meet.
insured through the Childcare Alliance. I have a risk assessment, but because I run sessions with parents present, they are responsible for their children. So I don't have to be registered with any governing body or anything like that.
Okay, that's fine. My second question was, we've heard earlier from Councillor Venables that she thought you'd been operating for some 2 to 3 years. Can you tell us of the number of complaints you've had about your operations on your site, if any?
Like personally to me?
Yes.
No, I haven't had any.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Adam.
Thank you. Just one part of the application, I understand, is a buffer zone to mitigate the impact of the car parking area. Could you just elaborate on that, what that would be made up of, as it were?
Sorry, could you say that again, please?
Yes, certainly. So part of the application, I understand, incorporates a buffer zone, it's referred to in the report and was picked up by the case officer with regards to the impact that the car parking area was having.
I'm not sure what you mean by buffer
I
zone.
think, are you referring to the planting to screen the views of the car parking area? So this is the additional planting.
Suggested as a condition, but that's to be determined.
Okay, so that's not something you've submitted
no.
as part of it.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas for these sorts of things, these can be conditioned as, for example, native species planting for further consideration by the authority at a later date.
Okay, well, that was quite a lot of questions, actually. I think they'd probably look as if they finished. I do have one for you myself, Mrs. Blaster, if that's okay. You do have, quite a lot of people have written in support, and from quite a wide area. What do you put that down to? What's the reason that this is attracting people from quite a wide area?
Because it's good. I mean,
okay.
I offer a good service. I have parents that perhaps would use us as a meet-up location. And I mean, how far you do have to travel? Where we live, you know, for children's activities, some of them are, you're going to be in the car 15 minutes, 20 minutes to get to something. But equally, I have people come from Tyso. Radway's a very small village. There's only a handful of children in Radway. They come. And where, depending on what days of the week you run, suits some families more than others, particularly if you're working part-time. You might need something that's on a Monday. There might not be something right close to you that is on a Monday, but I think people enjoy my sessions enough that they will travel.
Well, thanks very much for your contributions and explanations tonight. Thank you.
Okay.
And our final speaker, Councillor Littlewood. Good evening, Councillor. Thank you very much. I think you know how to work the microphone. I suspect you do. You do have 5 minutes if you'd like it all. If you'd like 30 seconds to go, do you think you'd like that? We'll give you that. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee. Good evening to everybody. This retrospective application is given rise to 2 complaints, just to correct the record, which led to an enforcement investigation. In my opinion, it offers no added benefit or local amenity compared to the potential harm that it is likely to cause should it grow. It's unsustainable in terms of travel and will cause harm to historic assets and landscape and, as we've heard, the tranquility of the area. The location straddles the border of Radway and Tysoe PCs, and that's why both parish councils are represented this evening, the majority of which is in Tysoe parish and situated within the Edge Hill battlefield site and on the border of the Scarpen Slope and Feldon Clay Vale special landscape areas, 5 kilometres from Middle Tysoe and 1.6 by road from the centre of Radway, and 150 metres from the group of 3 dwellings at King John's Lane. The battlefield battlefield trail footpath, as we heard, goes through the site. These are high-quality landscapes, including their associated historic and cultural features, and will be harmed, contrary to CS12. Horse riders and cyclists on the national route use a single-track road that passes the site, and increased usage raises concern over road safety. The Made Tysoe Neighbourhood Development Plan states that Tysoe is the most remote parish in Warwickshire, and the employment policy has strategic objective to encourage local working and reduce the number of vehicle journeys, thereby contributing to community sustainability. This remote site will be contrary to that policy. There is little or no public transport, I believe 1 bus a day. The officer's report states that the harms are balanced by public benefits, but does not take into account that many of the stated benefits are already being provided in Tysoe and Radway villages. For example, a forest school at Tysoe Preschool, run by qualified leaders, parent and toddler groups in Tysoe, weekly at the school and monthly at the church, tea, chat and play in Radway. Radway and Tysoe both have popular play parks in addition to these. CS22 states opportunities for business development will be provided in the countryside, including farm-based activities in accordance with policy AS10, countrysides and villages. The expansion of businesses in their existing locations will be supported, subject to the location and nature of the site and its accessibility, including public transport. This application is not sensitive to the character of the area, as it harms heritage assets and landscape, and therefore contrary to CS22 and AS10. It is also visible from the Cotswold special landscape, and more importantly perhaps the view, should the planting that's been proposed go in, the view to the CLN will be blurred out by hedges from the Battlefield Trails footpath. The Battlefield Trust has stated that car park and composting toilet has impacted views across the registered battlefield, causing less than substantial harm. Yet this is still harm and a subjective measure. The site is visible from the public footpath within the Cotswold National Landscape Escarpment, but the board has not been consulted, as far as we can see, for their response. Historic England states harm has been caused by the track that has already been laid, that is to say the roadway from the main entrance. And there is an objection from Ramblers Warwickshire. CS24 also states all forms of tourism and leisure
That's 30 seconds now.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All forms of I lost my place, sorry, but leisure and development should be designed to maximise the benefits for the communities affected in terms of job opportunities and support for local services. As the nearest cafe, pub and shop are 5 kilometres away in Tyso, the Castle at Edge Hill and Jilt's Cafe in Kyneton, support for local businesses is not likely. The application is therefore contrary to CS24. The proposed conditions include the use of a hedge as a screen, as I've mentioned, and the shielding of the car park from views is heavily reliant on the boundary hedge.
Thank you, Councillor. Could you just wind it up quickly, please?
Yeah. For these reasons, we ask the committee to reject the recommendation to grant. But if minded, then we ask that the operating hours are to be set as a condition as set out in the application. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Littlewood. Members, do we have any questions, please, for Councillor Littlewood? Councillor Score is indicating he has, please.
Thank you, Chair. I meant to ask the applicant, I don't know if you know, as a ward member, does the applicant live in the parish?
Yes, indeed.
So she does live in the parish?
Yes. To my knowledge, anyway.
Yeah, okay, Councillor Score. Anybody else with a question? Councillor Harvey.
Thanks, Councillor Littlewood. I think I heard you use the phrase that this application would lead to damage to battlefield assets.
That is to say that the site is within the battlefield site area, and the archaeological response is that, as has already been mentioned, that detritus, etc., could affect the any archaeological surveys that may take place into the future.
Thank you. Anybody else for a question? Councillor Littlewood, I have one, please, if that's okay. You said that, in your opinion, there was no benefit which would compare to the amount of harm that would do in this location, and that's the thrust of your objection. But we heard from the applicant that it's a very rural area, and in fact you said yourself that Tyso is quite remote. I don't know it that well, but I think you said that. Do you accept that in the rural areas that families with young children might have to travel? How do you sort of square that with the lack of public transport generally for families?
Well, it depends where people are coming from. The point really being made is that the centres of close centres of population are Tyso and Radway. It's in the winter time. It's the public footpaths from Radway to the site are very, very difficult to travel along, especially if you've got a buggy or a pushchair, etc. And in any case, you'll notice from the photographs given by the Councillor Venables that the gateways on the footpaths are kissing gates, which are almost impossible to negotiate with a pushchair. They have to be lifted over, etc. So you would have to be travelling with 2 adults, certainly. The majority, it seems to me, from what I've read within the notes of the people who are using the site are coming from a bit further than the local villages. Local villages do have those assets as well, and they can be used, and they're quite popular. And access, for example, to a very similar operation at the church is free and regular. So transport out away from Radway is even more lengthy and requires car journeys, and it's to do with the sustainability of any planning application when it comes to vehicular transport. And I only make that point because it's there.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor. It's an issue we face across the rural district. In that case, I think we've finished. Thank you very much for your contributions, Councillor.
Thank you very much.
Appreciated. Right, members, we're at the point of being able to ask the case officer for any clarifications that you'd like in respect to this application. So, anybody like to ask for any points of clarification? Start with Councillor Fleming.
Just a question to Louise. This application, was it triggered by an enforcement, or has it just come along? You know, did the enforcement action trigger the application? Is that why we're here?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So that enforcement encouraged the application in following a complaint.
Yeah, can I just follow that up with something else then?
Yes, you can.
So had there been no application, no enforcement notified by complaints, is this something that could have just carried on and nobody would ever have said anything at all?
Possibly. Can't say, but possibly.
Right, thank you, Councillor Fleming. Councillor Scorer.
Thank you. I do know the site and I know the area very well, and I know the MOD site very well as well. But there's been a couple of comments about the battlefield view. Have we got a photograph looking towards the battlefield? And is it going to be spoilt, the battlefield view? Because my understanding with the battlefield, the graveyard, there's whacking great big concrete bunkers in there.
Unfortunately, I haven't got a view from towards the battlefield, as far as I'm aware.
Well, just to clarify, the whole site is covered by the historic battlefield. So do you mean, have we got a photo from the MOD site?
Looking from the field towards the MOD site. But I get what you mean by spoiling that view, because it's all part of the view.
Yeah, I don't think we've got a photo to hand of that.
No.
I'm sorry.
Because so you need to swing round because the view looking over the actual battlefield.
It's the other way.
Thank you, Councillor Scorer. That's raised some questions in my mind as well. Councillor Adam.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify, because obviously this is a change of use application. How does that relate to the continued use of the field as a meadow, as described by the applicant? I mean, presumably that falls under agriculture. Is that regularised by this application, or is there a conflict there, as it were?
So as you can see from the plan there, the forest school area would be basically denoted by the red patches. So essentially, although the wider site is within the red line area, those are the areas to which the change of use essentially relates. So, and I think as confirmed by the applicant, the remainder of that meadowland is intended to stay as it's currently managed.
Thank you. Further questions, Councillor Redden?
Thank you, Chair. We heard as part of the speakers a suggestion perhaps of operating hours as a condition. There aren't any conditions as such, unless I've just misread it 3 times, which I might have. Is that because you don't feel it's necessary, or it's unreasonable, or is it still within our gift to go down that kind of route, because should we be minded to grant? Because that's the sort of thing that we see in other things mentioned within the report, like the dog walking sort of sites and things like that. So just some clarity on that, if you will.
There isn't any conditions at the moment proposed, because we consider that the way the applicant is operating the business, it wouldn't be necessary. But if members were to feel that in order to make the development acceptable, that's something that members could consider.
Any further questions? A point of clarification for me then, please, Louise, and it picks up on this issue of the views, really. As I understand it then, so there's going to be some screening of the footpath from the views over the car parking area. Is that correct?
Yes, I think the area which would be targeted would be to install a native hedgerow along this area here to assist in views.
Can you put the photograph up again of the cars?
Yeah.
So what we as you were walking along the footpath then, that view would be obscured by a hedge in front of your face, would it? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, so this is sort of the end of the current screening within the woodland, and where these posts are, it would just effectively follow along that line there.
Oh,
so
right,
that
okay.
view would, over time, certainly be screened.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And the views from the top of the escarpment, I mean, I'm not an expert on the English Civil War, but there was a huge area that they were fighting over and running around. What sort of views have you got of the development and the cars from the top of the ridge? Because it's quite wooded, isn't it? Are there paths partway down the slope?
Unfortunately, I don't have, a view specifically. If I can just refer you to the general plan here and with the black dot. So these are footpaths which are on the lower elements of the Edge Hill escarpment here. But just reminding members, there is that very mature hedgerow and there's intervening buildings and structures between that. So you may be able to potentially get some views as you're going up the escarpment here, but they're going to be filtered, to my mind.
Thank you. Further questions? No, okay, thank you very much for that, Louise. Okay, members, well, we've had great presentation and plenty of opportunity to ask questions of the presenters and also points of clarification. So let's move on to the debate and discussion about the merits and otherwise of this application. Who would like to kick us off? Councillor Edden, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Well, where I'm at the moment, we are faced with less than substantial harm versus something that appears to me to be self-proven in terms of its own benefits to the community. Which, where I'm at perhaps is currently, I'm normally more head than heart, but at the moment I've got a report that says grant in front of me and my heart says, you know, what's going on here is somewhat important. I think the ward member touched upon the fact that it's the most remote parish. So cars are going to be inevitable one way or another to get to it, and the report itself picks up on points on page 29 about, as I mentioned before, the dog exercise fields and that kind of thing around the area, and that this is in many ways more modest than things that are already there. We've talked about the views and the buffering of the hedgerow that's suggested, offsetting that or filtering it. I think, you know, as I sit here now, I'm probably in favour of going with the officer's recommendations, but let's open it up a bit.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edden. Councillor Scorer.
Thank you, Chair. One of the big things, the first thing I looked at was the Ministry of Defence, if they had any objections, because actually it's closest to the biggest ammunition dump in the western side of Europe, so which is in my ward as well. Clearly, some of you don't know the district very well, but I've seen that landscape round that area change. I've lived around this area all my life, and although I've never worked those fields, I've driven past on a tractor several times. Hence, that's why I asked about the question about the wildflower meadows. Land use for me, land use is an important issue, whether we use it for agriculture, energy, or leisure. I think taking 16 acres, I think the size of the field is out for leisure and education. I think for me, forest schools is an important part. So I support the officer's recommendation.
Are you prepared to turn that into a proposal, Councillor Scorer?
Yes, I will be, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take that as a proposal. Thank you very much. Who else would like to speak? Oh, Councillor Fleming. Oh, you're fighting over it. Councillor Adam.
Thank you. I'll start by probably making a slight declaration of interest in that I have a 3-year-old daughter. I don't think that's particularly material because I don't live close enough to attend this, but just for abundance of transparency. I mean, one of the points that was made by the applicant was the resource that this provides, particularly for mothers and people with children who will want to, and speaking as a parent with a young child, you need to get out of the house sometimes and find a resource for them to learn. I find that doing that within a rural setting is also very difficult, and having a forest school is something that I think is particularly important for us within our district to kind of maintain the understanding of the landscape that we live in. Yeah, and the things that I had not concern over, but I wanted to square before I kind of fell down one side or the other, was the use of the land and how that was going to be provided in perpetuity. The fact that it will be maintained as an agricultural use, it seems that the damage that's been identified is being we are mitigating through the conditions that we're looking at, and the rest, there is community benefit which outweighs, in my mind, the issues of heritage. So I think ultimately those are the things that work for me in favour of supporting the officer's recommendation. So I'd be happy to second it myself.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Adam. Anybody else like to enter the discussion? Yes, Councillor Fleming. Seen so many hands up.
Really conditioning on hours of use really is something that I was thinking of. I mean, I know 0 to 5-year-olds shouldn't be up at 8 o'clock in the evening going to a forest school anyway, so their age limit will limit the number of hours that they could be available to this thing. I don't know whether anybody else is interested in that, but I just wonder whether we should look at perhaps conditioning the hours as far as it's been applied for anyway, and go with that as far as I can see.
Alice, did you want to comment on that?
Yes, of course. I think it's reasonable to, like I say, officers didn't consider it was necessary, but I don't think it would be an unreasonable condition which we couldn't defend at appeal. It would just be kind of working out what exactly we think is reasonable and that still works for the applicant. So I know during their speaking slot they mentioned that they operate for 3 mornings a week for 90-minute sessions, but I'm just conscious that the planning statement submitted with the application states 3 to 4 mornings a week for a maximum of 2 hours. So I'm wondering if we go for the upper limit, so 4 mornings a week for a maximum of 2 hours, to me seems reasonable, is in line with what the applicant has set out within the planning statement. So my advice would be if you consider that to be necessary to support the proposal, I think that can certainly be defended.
Okay, thank you.
Could I ask just a point of clarification on that, Alice, please? That would be a condition attached to a permission if it were granted, and the applicant, if they wanted to seek to vary that, could do so if they wanted to come back and vary that condition separately.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you. Who's next? Councillor Eden, was it?
Sorry, me again. I was going to ask a similar question as Councillor Fleming, to be honest, and was kind of reasoning what might be reasonable myself. Obviously, Alice has made a suggestion based on the planning statement, so that might be better or more defensible, one way or another. But to my mind, 3 hours Monday to Friday gives them the opportunity to expand out to more schools or that kind of thing within weekdays, school days, over the summer period, and would probably save a vary coming back later with a little bit of scope to grow in. But, I'm just throwing that one out there.
Okay. Councillor Hencher-Serafin.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think it's one of the most important things for children at a young age to be out in the fresh air, to get away from the concrete jungle or whatever you want to call it. I had 3 very young children and they loved to go in the woods. It's a learning process. and also the parents get to meet each other. I think there's nothing finer, so I agree with the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scorer. Councillor Passingham, I think you indicated you wanted to.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with everything that's been said almost. There's tremendous community and educational benefit to this, and the possible damage is very minimum. So I think it's very, there are no objections at all, really.
And Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, I'm sympathetic to everything that's been said. Personally, Battle of Edge Hill was fought 23rd of October 1642. It's a long time for the Battlefield Trust to dig the place up if they wanted to. I can't see anybody doing it, and I certainly can't see 25-year-olds doing that much damage. This is the lowest possible impact. It's the use of a green space in the countryside. Personally, I think from what I've heard, the site is operated in a responsible manner, and I don't see the need to impose restrictions of hours. I would just let them get on with it. I think what will restrict their capability will be the patience of 5-year-olds. Simple as that. So if the majority want to go, then I'll reluctantly go along with it. But personally, I don't see the need.
Okay, thank you for that. Anybody else like to speak? Well, I'm going to say a few words. Councillor Organ.
Thank you, Chair. I think I would support the imposition of limitations on when this can be used. The ward member did ask for that, should the committee feel minded to grant, and so I would support a condition on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, I'm just going to put my position out there. When I first looked at this, I was concerned about the impacts that have been raised by the ward member and the parish councils, particularly in respect of the less than substantial harm. But the battlefield is a huge area, and what we've seen, in my view, is certainly some plans to mitigate those views from the public footpath to the car parking area, which is, I think, the thing that caused me most concern. It was seeing a line of cars. And the views from the top of the escarpment are going to be significantly filtered. My thoughts are with the proposal from Councillor Scorer. In respect of the conditions to limit the hours, my personal view, and we'll have to ask the proposer to consider this, is that if the applicant has come forward with a proposal for the working that they currently want, then it would not be unreasonable to stick with the application those conditions that have been brought forward. If the applicant seeks to expand and work longer hours, then there's always that opportunity to come back to vary that particular condition. But I'd ask you as the proposer to give us your views, because we're going to soon move to a vote.
Thank you. I mean, yes, the ward member did mention that. Personally, I think we're just going to be writing extra paper and extra work, because the way forest schools work, it's for 3 to 5 year olds, so they're not going to be up late at night. But I'm happy to go along. Whether we could use delegated powers for the officer, I don't know.
Alice, what's your view on this?
I mean, like I said, and I think Councillor Harvey picked it up, I don't think it's strictly necessary to have a condition, but if members would be more comfortable, then perhaps, we could agree something through you, Chair, so we can go away and give it, I think Councillor Redding, you indicated Monday to Friday for 3 hours. Obviously, they're probably going to want to do something at weekends, so perhaps 5 days a week for 3 hours. But then I'm conscious that obviously school holidays as well, it's likely to change demand, so then it gets a bit tricky. So really, I think I need more of a steer from members if they do want an operating hours condition.
Okay, I've got Councillor Fleming indicating to speak, so I'll just bring Councillor Fleming in.
This might sound a little bit sort of... The fact that they operated for 3 years without any permission at all, I think we need to condition, because they may well change the hours and not tell anybody for 3 years. And that's my reasoning for enforcing a condition to limit those hours.
Okay, that's a fair enough point. Councillor Scorer, back in.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned all of a sudden 5 days a week, whether they'd want to do, obviously, have they been working weekends? Probably, I'm not sure. But, you know, I don't think we should condition it just from Monday to Friday. My condition would be after, say, 6 o'clock at night.
Okay, Councillor Scorer, would you be happy to propose this, the grant of this application with the conditions on hours to be delegated to the chair myself to work? Oh, hang on. Okay, sorry, I'll just reword that then. So you'd be happy to delegate to the officers in consultation with the chair. Is that right, Sue?
Chair, that would only be for the precise wording of the condition. I think if the committee are of the view that the hours of operation of the business need to be specified, then I think the committee has to specify what those hours should be.
We need to go back to the proposer then, really.
Yeah, personally, I think we're getting hung up on hours. I just think, you know, that it's a sustainable business. You know, that I think we should just go with my original proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Adam.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to agree with Councillor Scorer. I think they've been self-policing, and it's arguably a movable thing, particularly with outdoor activities, with daylight and how that changed over the year and how it would run. I'm not concerned. The fact that they operate without planning permission doesn't mean that they're not willing to regularise it through the process that we're observing now. I'm happy with the original proposal, as I seconded. Okay, in which case we've got a proposer for this application 240009 full, and a seconder to grant in accordance with the application and the conditions and the officer's recommendation. So would we like to take that to a vote, please? A show of hands, all in favour. I don't have a card. I'll put that up.
Unanimous.
Thank you very much. Right, thank you very much, everybody. And thanks also to our speakers for coming along and participating. It's appreciated. I'm going to take a 5-minute break now at this point. Thank you, members.
Kira, thank you very much. Have we got everybody here? I think we've lost somebody. We don't need to send a search party out. Okay, right, thank you. Members. Right, moving on to the next agenda item, which is item 4 on the agenda, but we just switched them around. It's application 2400290, Woolly Park Farm, Wolverton Road, for the temporary siting of a mobile structure for the care of animals. And Eleanor is going to take us through the application. Thank you, Eleanor. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. This application is a full planning application for the temporary siting of a mobile structure for care of animals in conjunction with the existing animal sanctuary for a period of 5 years. There is to be no residential accommodation use of the unit. The application site is identified by the black dot on the plan. It is located in the open countryside and lies to the north of the village of Wolverton and to the west of the village of Norton Lindsey. The site is washed over by the West Midlands Greenbelt, and it also lies within the Arden Special Landscape Area. The red dot on this plan roughly identifies the application site, and the green dotted and solid lines show public footpaths and bridleways. The pink dotted line to the east of the application site shows the district boundary between Stratford and Warwick District. The mobile unit is currently on site and, as shown on this plan, is positioned to the south of a cluster of buildings associated with the animal sanctuary. On the right of this slide, we have the location plan submitted with the application, with the area outlined in blue identifying the land within the applicant's ownership, which is approximately 4.5 hectares. Again, the siting of the mobile unit is outlined in red to the south of the existing buildings. On the left of the slide is a layout plan of the mobile structure, identifying the different areas within the unit. I now have a few photos of the site and surroundings. We stood on the main road looking towards the main buildings at the sanctuary. The mobile structure is located to the right of this photo out of shot. Stood within the area just shown, we can see the mobile structure subject to this application. This is a closer up photo of the structure. We're now stood approximately 130 metres to the south of the site, looking towards it with the mobile structure. Again, we're stood to the south of the site, this time approximately 300 metres away. The animal sanctuary buildings at the site can be viewed. There are a couple of updates to the application set out in the update sheet. Chair, the recommendation is to grant the application subject to the conditions set out on pages 17 and 18 of the agenda.
Thank you, Eleanor. Right, we have one registered speaker for this application. It's Councillor James Wynne-Evans from Wolverton Parish Council. Good evening, Mr. Wynne-Evans. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Chair.
We'll give you 3 minutes to make your representations. And if you'd, I'll just indicate when you've got 30 seconds.
Thank you. I don't think I'll need
to go. That's what everybody says. But I'll just let you know. So over to you when you're ready. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for taking time to listen to me this evening. Wolverton Parish Council objects to this application, and I have 4 points, fairly simple points to make. The first of which is, as mentioned by the officer just now, this is an application in the Greenbelt and in the Arden Special Landscape Area, and it should be considered in that context. While the photographs fail to pick up much of the site and the mobile structure in question, it does have visual impact on the area, as it is by a relatively well-used road. Not a busy road, but a well-used road on the outskirts of Wolverton Village. Second point I'd like to make is that the application itself seeks to rely on planning policies that the facts don't support. Particularly the application is made on the basis of support of paragraph 84 of the NPPF, which relates to isolated houses. As the officer mentioned, no residential accommodation is applied for here. This is a site for facilities for volunteers as an animal sanctuary. The other planning policy that the application seeks to rely on is paragraph 85 of the NPPF, which relates to rural businesses, but this is not a rural business, this is a sanctuary supported by volunteers. As such, while the application states that it has some of the features of an agricultural business, it is not a business. So the third point I'd like to make is that there do not appear to be any special circumstances or very special circumstances that would support an application here. If those special circumstances were applicable here, then the application ought to have made reference to them, but it does not do so. It merely asserts that there are very special circumstances. As you'll appreciate, on the planning applications we see at the parish level, they all say they've got very special circumstances. And the last point that I'd like to make is that this application forms part of a course of conduct by these applicants, which has seen them over the last 20 and more years make a series of applications for temporary planning permission. And each time the application has been allowed to expire, it's for the same mobile caravans or whatever on the site. Each time the applications appear to be allowed to expire, and they then apply for retrospective planning permission afterwards. This appears to be a course of conduct which is seeking to use a series of temporary planning applications and planning permissions to make permanent or to get all the benefits of a permanent planning permission. They do have permanent planning permission for a proper structure, not these temporary structures, but they haven't done anything other than secure the foundations to secure the long-term benefit of that planning permission. So to that extent, there is something about this application in the context of the series of applications that have been made, which makes it look like it's something of an abuse of the planning process. That is all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Members, hang on a second. Members, do you have any questions for Councillor Wyn Evans, please? Councillor Adam.
Thank you. Good evening. Just to be clear then, so am I right in understanding that because you mentioned that they have a planning permission that they haven't built out, do you know particularly what that pertains to? Is that a manager's dwelling? Or?
They've done enough, you know, to have done is it a substantial commencement of works or whatever it is? They've built a concrete slab for footings.
Right.
And I think it's it's for a proper building. They've had that planning permission for some considerable number of years.
Okay, I'll clarify that with the officers. Thank you very much.
Councillor Scorer.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned that the site is used for open days. Do you know how many open days they have? And then you've mentioned creating parking problems. Is that in the field or on the side of the road?
There are. I don't know how many events they run a year. They're not really publicised locally by flyers or whatever. The planning problems, though, are the parking problems are ones which are on the road and typically extend up to the junction and indeed up the hill on Wolverton Road. So if we look at the map there, you can see moving away to the right-hand side, we've got Wolverton Road, that is going uphill towards Norton Lindsay Village. You get parking on there, you get parking on the verges, and you get parking round the junction, and then the road heading towards the bottom of the picture, you also get parking along there, parking on the pavement, blocking that from being used by pedestrians. That's something that the parish council is looking to raise with the local police you know, what have they been reorganised to these days? Yeah,
Okay, thank you, Councillor Squire. Anybody else like to ask a question? No? In which case, Councillor Wynne-Evans, thank you very much for your time and your contribution. That's the only speaker we have on this application. So now you've got an opportunity to ask points of clarification from the case officer. Councillor Eden.
These temporary conditions, or permissions, should I say, not conditions. Obviously, there was one back in, if I'm reading it right, about 2018, so 2.5 will have expired, sort of 2 years ago-ish. There's a further application here that's another temporary. This could go on in perpetuity, couldn't it? How does that work? Or is that literally how it works?
So just for clarity, in regards to the mobile structure subject to this application, the only application that we've had in relation to that has been the 2018 application, so the first one in the planning history. The other applications cited in that history are on the wider site and relate to another mobile home to the north of this structure and other development on the site. So the only application in relation to this particular red line area is the 2018 application. What was the second bit of the question, sorry?
That's okay, if I may, Chair. Yeah. The fact that these temporary permissions could roll on forever in perpetuity, could you explain that?
So yes, this is obviously the second time that they've applied for this mobile structure, but we need to assess the application on its own merits and each time, and officers are satisfied that they have that there is justification for another temporary permission at the site. If further applications come in for further temporary permissions, then we'd have to deal with them at that point and on their own merits at that point in time.
Yep, another question?
Sort of a follow-on again, sorry, about all my weird questions. And is there a threshold of sort of a build of temporary-like conditions that might be reached at some point, or is it just every application one by one?
I think, yes, it's every application is assessed on its own merits.
Thank you. Councillor Adam.
Thank you. Two-part question, really. The speaker alluded to a previous application that had been granted that hadn't been built out. Am I right in saying that would be the manager's dwelling from the 05 application?
Yes, that's correct. So there was a 2005 outline application for a manager's dwelling, which was allowed at appeal, and then the 2008 reserve matters application. This application before us doesn't confirm whether there has been a material or lawful commencement of that development, and that is for a dwelling, which is not what is being applied for as part of this application.
Okay, because just for clarity then, so my understanding of how that would be if a manager's dwelling were there, that might alleviate the requirement for an additional temporary, as it were, but I suppose that's a bit too speculative at this point.
The application before us is not for a dwelling. It is for...
Oh no, sorry, just to be clear, because it's a manager's dwelling, not just a dwelling in general, it's for somebody to be on site, presumably for the management of the site and the operations thereupon.
Yes.
Which this temporary structure is there to help with. So there's a dual a crossover of the functionality, as it were.
Yes, when the original outline application was approved, the inspector would have taken into account the need for a manager's dwelling at the site back then.
Thank you.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Wynne Evans made a particular point, two particular points in relation to the NPPF. He cited paragraph 84, which relates to isolated homes. And this isn't a home, therefore he regarded that as irrelevant. And 85, he referred to NPPF 85, paragraph 85 refers to a business, and he made the point that it was a sanctuary, not a business. Your report doesn't mention either of those two paragraphs, and I presume that's because you think that's not relevant to this application. Is that the case?
Yes, so I've cited paragraphs 88 and 89 of the MPPF. You're correct, the application is not for a dwelling or a rural home, so that part of the MPPF is not relevant.
Second question? Only two.
Carry on.
This relates to the question of succession of applications. Page 13, you referred to paragraph 155 of the NPPF, and point B, it could be possible to grant consent if the case could be made that there's a demonstrable unmet need for the type of development proposed. Now, this is an application which I presume seeks to do that, and therefore, in 5 years' time, the applicant might seek to do it again because he might contend that the need is still there. If that were to take place, or as it has taken place already, or allegedly so, is that an abuse of the planning system, or is that merely making use of the planning system?
I think any applicant is entitled to make any application that they wish, and we have to determine it on the point of submission. I don't know if my manager wants to add to that.
My personal opinion is that it's a use of the planning system as opposed to an abuse. You know, it's set up in a way that people can apply for temporary permissions. We assess them on that basis, or they can apply for permanent. You know, they might think in 5 years' time, actually, we want a more permanent structure, and put in a permanent application. And we considered it on that basis. So it's people using the planning system to their advantage, but there's nothing to say that that is wrong.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. I've got a point of clarification as well. We heard from the councillor that there are open days and a lot of traffic problems or parking on the roads. Can you explain to us what relevance that has in respect of this application for this temporary permission of this particular mobile structure?
So I think the application in front of us is purely for the mobile structure for the care of animals in conjunction with the animal sanctuary. We're not looking at open days at the site. It's the need that has been demonstrated, that they need the structure in order to continue with the running of the sanctuary.
Okay, thank you. So I take it that it's not relevant in respect of the application in front of us. Anybody else like to ask a point of clarification? Okay, well, thank you very much for that. So we can now move on to the discussion and debate. Would anybody like to kick us off on this one? Please, Councillor Padgham. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, reading the officer's report and looking at the background, and we've established now that you are allowed to apply for a temporary application and, as you say, make use of the planning system in that respect. So I'm satisfied that there's nothing untoward about this application in that sense. It looks like it is necessary for the running of the animal sanctuary. I can see that the officers put a lot of time and effort into exploring the relevant policy sort of considerations of why they think we should grant the application. Personally, obviously thinking about it with my head and my heart, I think it's something that I would be prepared to support in line with the officers. recommendations, but I'm interested to see what other people say. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Padgham, for that. Councillor Eden.
Thank you, Chair. Much along the lines of what's just been said, I think I'm pretty satisfied. In some respects, I'm frustrated that we couldn't hear from the applicant and perhaps ask them some questions about the kind of longer term plan and what has and hasn't been done. That might have given us a useful bit of context, but on the basis that they're not here and we can't, what's in front of me looks satisfactory in terms of how the case officer has assessed everything, and I think we sort of asked the right sort of questions around an abuse or use of the planning system, and I think that this is a use of the planning system, as frustrating as it is, certainly for the parish council. So other than that, I can't see any material planning reasons to go against this, so I will propose that we go along the lines of the officer's recommendation to grant.
All right, Councillor Eden, thank you. I'll accept that proposal. Would anyone like? Councillor Padgham?
I'd be happy to second that.
Thank you very much. So I have a proposer and a second. Would anybody else like to speak on this application? It looks like they don't. So in which case, I have a proposal and a second for this application at Woolly Park Farm 24000290, and that is to accept the support the officer's recommendation to grant this application. So in that respect, could I take that to a vote, please? All in favour of that, please raise your cards.
Unanimous.
Thank you very much, everybody. So unanimous decision to grant application 24000290 full, which is the temporary siting of a mobile structure for the care of animals at Woolly Park Farm, Wolverton Road, Wolverton. Thank you all. Which takes us nicely on to the next item on the agenda. If I can find it. It's probably any other business. Any urgent business? There isn't any urgent business. In which case, thank you all for your attendance and contributions this evening, and I declare the meeting closed.